Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about routing in Blazor. I want to check out if we can pass parameters, if we can go to multiple routes for a particular component, if we can navigate to a particular component through code behind. But before I jump into routing, I want to figure out where the starting point of a Blazor application is. So like any other .NET application, even Blazor starts with main function in program.cs. And if you see, it's calling this create host builder function, which is defined right here. And it's using the startup class for configuring the application. There are a lot of things happening here, but there are two things that I'm curious about is this, where we are using the routing and we're defining some endpoints. Here we are calling two functions where it's saying map Blazor hub and map fallback to page. Map Blazor hub means that our Blazor application is welcoming the incoming requests. And this fallback page means for any valid and invalid addresses, it should go to this host file. Let's look for this host file. This host file is here. If you open this host file, you can see one thing to notice here is it's cs.html. That means you can have MVC files in your Blazor application. That's pretty cool. And the reason why I say this is the first page is because we're trying to load some styling here and we're trying to load some JavaScript here. So this is like the master page of our Blazor app. And we are trying to render this app class, which is in our application, in our project, which is right here. So when I open this file, you can see we have just one big tag here, which is router. This is where the routing happens. This is where application tries to manipulate the route and see if it's valid address or not, if it's invalid, and it does things depending on that. So you can see that there is a found tag and other is not found. In found, it's trying to go the main layout and it's passing the route data, which means it's passing the route and it's passing the parameters with it. But if it doesn't find the address in our assembly here, then what it's trying to say is it's saying that, sorry, there is nothing at this address. So I'm going to add something here. I'm going to add a header saying that 404 error. And let's run this application and try to put some invalid address in the browser and see how it looks like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put some gibberish here and hit enter. Then you can see that it's going to that layout where it's showing 404 error, I'm sorry. So what I want to do now is this is the page which I added in my last video, and I want to add some links here. And when I click on it, it should go to that page, which is not one of these pages. So first thing, I'm going to go to let's close these pages, and I'm going to go to authors, and I'm going to put a separator here and add an anchor link and call it as JK Rowling because we're talking about authors. Nice. And to go to the detail page, I'm going to add a component here. I'm going to add a razor component and I'm going to call it author detail. Nice. So now that we've added the component, we should mention the address of the component. I'm going to copy that and say in front of author, I'm going to say this is author detail page because it's in authors. Nice. Let's add some details. I'm going to say that add a separator and add a paragraph saying that J.K. Rowling, she wrote Harry Potter. Nice. And I'm going to call this address when I click on my hyperlink here. So the hyperlink is this. Let's run this and see if this works or not. So I'll go to authors page here and click on this JK Rowling link, which I just added. So when I click on it, it goes to author detail and shows JK Rowling wrote Harry Potter. But what if I don't like this address? I want to use a different route to get to the component. So what I can do is, I don't like this route. I'm going to define another route to get to this component. I'm gonna say, okay, I would like to go to that component using author. Let's rerun this and see if this works. So I'll go to this page, and when I remove this author and just say author, then also it's going to the same address here. Nice. So we can have multiple routes for a particular component. That makes sense, right? In a real world, if you're trying to get to a destination, you can have multiple routes. But you cannot have the same route to go to single destination. Let's see what happens here. So what I did, I copied the same route and put it in a different component. And when I rerun this, it will throw an error saying that you cannot have single route to go to multiple destinations. Cool. So what I want to do is I want to learn about parameters. How can I send parameters in my component? So to send parameters, what you do here is you in parameter, you say author ID, and to catch the author ID, you have to create a parameter. You have to create a property here, which I'm going to mention as string, and it will get caught in this property. This is not case sensitive, so that's nice. And you'll have to mention parameter attribute here. And to show author ID in my HTML, I'm going to say @author ID here. Nice. And I'm now gonna change this link in my authors page here and run the application. So when I go to authors page, when I click on this link, which is not taking the parameter, it'll take me to 404 error. That means once you mention the parameter, it becomes mandatory. It becomes compulsory for you to send parameter if you're mentioning that as part of the route. So how do we dodge that problem? To dodge that problem, what we can do, we can use the same thing that we discussed. You can have multiple routes to get to a component. I'm going to rerun this and see if this works. I'll go to authors and I'll click on this link. When I click on this link, it goes to the page and it takes parameter as string, which is blank. Nice. So, and if I want to pass the parameter 22, it shows 22 here. Nice. What if I want to pass integer as a parameter? See, by default, Blazor takes parameters as string. That's the reason why I mentioned string as property. But if I want integer, if I don't want to convert my string every time, then what I'll do is I'll mention this parameter as integer. I'm catching an integer. And to tell Blazor that, okay, our parameter is integer, you say :integer. And you can pass multiple data types, which are mentioned in the documentation here. You can pass different data types, but you'll have to mention if it's other than string. Nice. So yeah, let's try to pass the parameter, which is integer. I'm going to mention 11 here and see if this works. I'll go here and click on, you can see in the left bottom corner that it's showing 11 now. When I click on it, it shows 11 here and passes 11 as an integer. Awesome. Okay, so now that we learned that you can have multiple routes for a particular component, you can pass parameters, you can pass different data types of parameters. What I want to do is I want to go to a particular component on a button click. I want to handle navigation through code. So how do we do that? For that, I'm gonna steal some of the code from our counter page here, and I'll click on and put a breakpoint here. So that it looks nicer. And instead of click me, I want to say JK Rowling here. And from counter page, I'm gonna copy this function and put it here. And I'm gonna say this is a navigate function. Copy and paste. Yeah, nice. Instead of incrementing the count, we would like to navigate to our author detail page. So for navigating, I'm going to inject NavigationManager class here. See, we'll talk about dependency injection in our next video. This is pretty cool concept that they have added with ASP.NET Core 3, and I would like to make another video and talk in detail about dependency injection, so hang in there. And I'm gonna use this navigation manager, and use navigate2 function here, and I will copy this route and say 22, and try to call this. So what I'm trying to do here is on this button click, I'm calling this navigation function here, navigate function, and that will take me to this author detail passing 22 as the parameter. Let's see if this works. So I'll go to authors page, and you can see that this button got added. When I click on it, it goes to 22, and when I click on this hyperlink, it goes to 11, and it's showing the same details. So this is how you can use routing in your Blazor app. There are a few other things that I want to talk about is additional assemblies. See, the way Blazor notes all the routes in your application is because of program.assemblies. And if you're trying to reuse a component someone wrote, you'll have to let your Blazor application know that that component has some routes, and you should know what those routes are. So if you want to add some additional components, you will have to pass this in our router tag here, which is in our App.razor. And another thing that I want to discuss is you can have dot in your route. I don't personally mention dots in my application, but if you want to have, you can have it. You just have to put this piece of string here in our host.cs HTML here, and you can have dots in your application, in your routes too. So yeah, that's all about routing. If you have any questions, put it in comments, and I will try to get back to you. Yeah, in my next video, I'm going to talk about dependency injection. This is Fahad. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.